This episode was recorded in the Terror Stream. Producer Debbie O'Reilly. Sound engineer Keith Oman. Theme music by Ari Posner and Ian Lefevre. Co-writer Sydney O'Reilly. Follow me on Twitter at Terry O Influence for show updates and bonus material. See you next week.
Under the Influence.
Tastes as good as it smells every time.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg.
Female athletes have always needed grit and talent. But for decades, they've also needed a certificate.
To prove that they were actually women, according to different definitions.
And even now, they're still being checked and questioned. Their story is the newest podcast series from CBC and NPR's Embedded. It's called Tested.
Tested, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime, anywhere.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12 o'clock, it's 20 in Winnipeg. Cloudy today, 30% chance of drizzle or showers, risk of a thunderstorm later on. A high of 25 feels like 33. Canada's two biggest railways are shut down in a dispute that could cost the economy tens of millions of dollars per day. CN Rail, CPKC, and the Teamsters Union failed to reach an agreement by last night's deadline. The stoppage will affect supply chains across the country. Ottawa is showing no sign it's prepared to intervene. Jean-Yves Duclos is the Public Services Minister.
The best way to come to an agreement quickly and to have workers return to their workplace is to have a negotiated agreement.
Janice McGregor has more on what each side is saying.
CN said it made a final attempt to avoid this with an offer at the bargaining table in Montreal last night. It says its offer would have improved wages, but it said the union did not respond. From the bargaining table in Calgary, CPKC also said it was offering wage increases that exceeded inflation. And yet, it says a negotiated outcome is not within reach because the Teamsters continue to make unrealistic demands. So, what's the union saying as it heads to the picket lines this morning? It says the sides remained far apart. It blamed the railways for this work stoppage, saying none of their offers were seriously considered by either company. The union president, Paul Bouchard, said the railways are showing themselves willing to compromise rail safety and tear families apart to earn an extra buck. Says the companies are trying to weaken worker protections around rest periods and, in CN's case, also force employees to relocate. Janice McGregor, CBC News, Ottawa.
Meanwhile, a local expert in supply chain management says the federal government is going to have to step in soon to end the railway lockout. Barry Prentice is a professor of supply chain management at the Asper School of Business. In 2019, a CN strike lasted 8 days and took months for rail service to return to normal. Prentice believes Ottawa will have to take action quickly.
7 to 10 days, I think this will have to be resolved. It just is simply too great an impact on the economy to just ignore this and try to hope that the workers and the railways will find a solution. So I think the government is now being forced to act.
Prentice says for CPKC, a quarter of what it moves is grain and fertilizer. Another quarter is consumer goods. He says this is the worst time of year for the grain industry to have a work stoppage. Prescription birth control will be free in Manitoba as of October 1st. It will cover the full cost of 60 different commonly used birth control methods, from the pill to IUDs to hormone injections. Families Minister Nahani Fontaine says cost is often a barrier for women to use birth control.
Free birth control fundamentally contributes to gender equality by ensuring women, girls, and gender-diverse folks have the same opportunities as men in education, employment, and personal development. Free birth control helps in breaking the cycle of poverty.
Fontaine says access to birth control will also save healthcare costs related to unplanned pregnancies, such as abortion and prenatal care. The federal government is also looking at providing free birth control. The province says it's in negotiations with Ottawa on how the programs could work together, but didn't want Manitobans to wait. The Premier says intimate partner violence needs to be addressed at multiple levels, from the courts to public health. Last week, 3 people were murdered. The victims were the family of the suspect's ex-partner who had a restraining order against him. On CBC this morning, Premier Wab Kinew said his ministers of families and housing are meeting to discuss the issue, but he also wants to bring in Public Officer of Health Dr. Brent Rusin. Kinew says they also need to look at cases where people are being controlled by having their bank cards or cell phones taken away.
We're looking closely at coercive control and how can we use the legal framework here in Manitoba to step in at that level and hopefully not only address that very challenging situation for people who are living through it, but also maybe head off some of these worse outcomes that unfortunately we've been visited with too often in Manitoba.
Kinew says the province is also working on increasing the number of 24-hour safe spaces in both Winnipeg and rural areas. Now to some international news. In Italy, crews are still looking for one body off the coast of Sicily. The Italian Coast Guard ferries dive crews to the site of the sunken super yacht. The remains of 5 people have now been discovered. One of them is the body of British tech tycoon Mike Lynch. His 18-year-old daughter Hannah is the only one who remains missing. The yacht went down during a storm early Monday. Investigators are looking into why the vessel sank so quickly. Back in Canada, another potential strike is looming in the transportation sector. Air Canada pilots have overwhelmingly voted for giving their union the power to call a strike. The union says retirement, scheduling concerns, and compensation are among the main issues. Air Canada says talks have progressed and it hopes to finalize a deal in the next few weeks. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 12:30.
Good afternoon and welcome to Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoog-Stratton, filling in for Janet Stewart. Coming up on the show today, our call-in. We want you to call in and tell us, should cyclists be allowed to slow roll through stop signs? There's a rally today in favor of allowing that bylaw. What do you think? What else would you like to see change around cycling in our city? Our in-studio guest is Winnipeg's bike mayor. And also hang out with big spenders and become a big spender. That's what finance columnist Rubina Ahmed-Haq is attacking today, about the influence on our wealth by our friends. And coming right up, $50 million a day. That's how much grain growers say the dual work stoppage by both of Canada's major railways will cost the industry. We'll hear from the executive director of the Grain Growers of Canada. It's 7 minutes after 12 o'clock. Canadian grain growers are raising the alarm over the work stoppage by both of Canada's major railways. More than 9,000 workers at CN Rail and CPKC were locked out at midnight, grinding rail lines to a halt. Grain growers say they're concerned about the effect of the stoppage on the grain industry and the Canadian economy. Kyle Larkin is the executive director of Grain Growers of Canada. He joins us by Zoom from Ottawa. Hello.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being with us. First, can you give me your reaction to the work stoppage that has begun?
Well, we're extremely concerned. This is unprecedented in Canadian history. Never have we ever had before both of Canada's national railways totally shut down. And our research finds that this will cost grain farmers, starting today, $50 million a day in lost sales. Simply put, grain farmers can't deliver their grain to their local grain elevators when the railways aren't operating. And we know already since Tuesday this week, new shipments of grain have been rejected from the railways. So grain elevators are already shutting down their operations and already telling no to grain farmers who are looking to deliver their grain that they're harvesting right now.
And this $50 million a day, well, how will that be impacted on the various industries? Are some more of them taking it on the chin than others?
Well, this is $50 million a day lost in direct sales for grain farmers. So when grain farmers are combining their grain, which they're doing right now, they typically, some of it will be stored, but some of it will be sold directly to their local grain elevators. But right now, because of a limited storage capacity at grain elevators, they're being rejected. They're not accepting new shipments. And as we know, grain farmers are only paid when they can deliver their grain. So it's a huge issue for grain farmers that have invested thousands of dollars into their crops through the seed to start the crop, through fertilizers, through pesticides. They've been growing these crops for months. They've been waiting for their payday. Finally, the payday has come, except the grain elevators are closed and the railways are closed. So there's no payday coming anytime soon until this gets resolved.
Well, rail transport is, of course, absolutely vital to the grain industry. So the timing of this, you're saying, is absolutely devastating.
Exactly. 94% of grain is transported by rail. I've been asked today and this week, are there any alternatives out there? The simple answer is no. You cannot find enough trucks and truck drivers to transport these millions of tons of grain across the country from places like Manitoba and from other provinces in Canada. That infrastructure and those workers just don't simply exist. We need the rail system functioning to be able to transport this grain for both our domestic use, but also our international customers that are waiting for this grain so they can transform it into the products that they rely on.
So the producers of grain are basically helpless right now. There's no action they can take to preserve their grain that's already off the fields.
There's no action, unfortunately. All they can do is store it in their grain silos if they have that storage capacity. I know there's a number of grain farmers out there that are buying and spending thousands of dollars buying temporary storage capacity, which isn't 100%. There's still a risk of wildlife getting into the grain or food spoilage. So that's a big concern. But the longer this rail stoppage goes for, the more concerned we're going to be around food security, food spoilage, and everything that goes within that.
So is there an alternative? For example, would anybody leave their crop on the field and not combine yet? Or is hot weather going to deteriorate it more? How does that play out if they're standing in the fields or in the cars?
Well, when the crop's ready, the crop is ready. So farmers are out right now combining crops that are ready. Certainly, we haven't reached what I would call the peak harvest season, but we're about to reach that in a week or so in many places across the prairies. Every province, obviously, around the country is different. But I know a number of farmers out right now that are harvesting their peas. They're harvesting wheat. They're harvesting fall rye. They're out there already harvesting because the crops are ready to go. You just simply can't leave the crops there for too long, or you're going to risk losing quality or even losing yield.
You touched on the wider impact of this, but how long will it be before consumers feel the impact of the grain being stopped?
I would gander that consumers will likely see impacts within a week or so. When you look at wheat, for example, a good amount of wheat from Manitoba is transported by rail to Ontario, where then it's processed in the flour and then baked into the bread or the hot dog buns or whatever that consumers across the country are buying at their grocery stores. So without that rail transportation network, Canadians across the country, consumers across the country are going to start seeing a shortage on their grocery shelves of products that rely on grain products. But it's also not just grain, obviously. It's everything that's transported by rail. So, you can think of fresh produce, vegetables, and fruit, amongst a number of other products on the grocery shelves that Canadians aren't going to be able to buy if this work stoppage goes for too long.
So what do you think needs to happen to resolve this?
Government needs to get involved and it needs to take this issue more seriously than I believe they've had. They've been relying on hopes and prayers that the railways and that the union will come together. It's been almost a year of negotiations between these three parties, and they've gotten absolutely nowhere. It's time that the government looks at binding arbitration, bringing in a third-party referee to bring these parties to the table so they can hammer out an agreement for the good of Canada and for the good of the Canadian economy. If they can't come to an agreement there, then the last possible option is back to work legislation, which is necessary to keep the economy on track.
Well, thank you very much for your time today on Radio Noon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Kyle Larkin is the Executive Director of the Grain Growers of Canada, and you can get updates on this story at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The CBC News app delivers the answers you want to know and need to know.
What an extraordinary scene.
The breaking stories that shape your world. Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
Dropping the 8 now. We're just approaching Gaza.
Your source for mobile news. Delivered when you want, where you want.
This situation has changed very quickly.
The CBC News app. Download for free.
You're listening to CBC Radio Noon. I'm Lori Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet Stewart. You're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. Coming up later in the show, personal finance columnist Rubina Hawk says how your friends may be encouraging you to spend money you don't have. Coming up, she talks about how our relationships may be keeping us from building our wealth. And we want you to call in about cyclists stopping and starting, or not. A group of Winnipeg cyclists wants to bring the Idaho Stop, where cyclists just glide through the intersection, to Manitoba. But what exactly is it, and what do you think of that idea? Our call-in guest is Winnipeg's bike mayor to take your comments and answer your questions. So give us a call after the 12:30 news, 204-780-0893. And taking a look at the weather today, it's pretty nice. It's going to be 25, but boy, was it ever raining this morning. And I think those showers are coming back and forth, clearing this afternoon, says Riley, and a slim chance of scattered showers later today. Winds out of the southeast at 20, gusting to 40. On Friday, 28 degrees. It's staying warm. Saturday, 30 degrees. Sunday, 30. And even next week, it's staying pretty warm. Some temperatures right now. In Brandon, it's 21. Churchill, 24. Gimli, 19. The Paw is 20. Thompson is 17. And in Winnipeg, it's 22 degrees with the winds out of the south at 26. And it's just coming up to 16 minutes after 12 o'clock. It's no secret that most of us are influenced by the people we spend the most time with, the way we dress, the music we listen to, and where we go on holiday. It can all be impacted by what the people around us are doing. But as personal finance columnist Rubina Hawk explains, your social circle could be having a major impact on your finances too.
Hang out with big spenders and become a big spender. That's the message certified financial planner Robin Thompson has for anyone trying to manage their money better.
It's not surprising that our financial behaviors are also swayed by our friends through, again, social observation or learning, and this can have a huge impact on our wealth.
Thompson says it's hard to resist spending when everyone around us is doing it. She says this can be buying a certain expensive item or renovating your house or taking a luxury vacation. If your budget doesn't allow it, you could be getting into debt you can't afford. But cutting out friends who make you spend more can be hard too.
Saying no sometimes could mean that you may feel like it could hurt the relationship or you could lose the relationship. But the flip side to this is that if you try to keep up, you could actually derail your financial goals and peace of mind.
Thompson says being friends who have different money values can be hard. That proverbial keeping up with the Joneses problem will continue to impact you. She says, like it or not, your friends may be keeping you from your financial goals. Just because they can afford the lifestyle they're living doesn't mean you can. The problem is many of us still feel uncomfortable talking about money with our peers.
Spending is visible, but saving and investing are invisible. And sometimes our attention is focused on other lifestyles.
Thompson adds this is true for those who can afford what they're doing. But in some cases, your friends may be going into debt to impress others too, making it worse as you're both encouraging each other to spend money you don't have. Ultimately, this is delaying you both getting out of debt, saving for the future, and building wealth.
What we find when it comes to money, especially, is that it's easy to villainize and label somebody who spends in a different way than you do.
Lisa Jones is the co-founder of the Relationship Coaches in Calgary. Her and her partner, Lindsay Hammond, help individuals navigate difficult conversations, such as those that have to do with money.
Being honest with your friends and family is always going to be the best approach. So it would be as simple as saying like, hey, thank you so much for that invitation. I had so much fun in previous years and I wish I could do it all, but I can't do it all this season with our budget, and so I'm not going to be able to make it this year.
Both the coaches say admitting you can't afford something can make us feel vulnerable. They recommend we flip our thinking and feel empowered that we are making our financial wellness a priority. Hammond says when you talk about money, it can actually create stronger bonds with your friends.
For some, it is really vulnerable, and vulnerability is one of those things where we want to see it in others. It's what brings us closer to other people, but it's really hard to be the first one to put it out there.
The experts say having friends with different money values is okay, as long as you recognize when you're spending in a way you can't afford or want to. The coaches say if you're the one who can afford more, make sure you're not suggesting things your friends don't have money for, as this is keeping them from building their wealth. The coaches say it's important to spend time with those who share your money values and be honest with the friends who don't, so you can find a compromise. For CBC Radio, I'm Rubina Ahmed Haq.
Food, art, music, dance, and more. Cultivation Festival FAMD is back August 19th to 25th. Proudly sponsored by CBC. Come celebrate Manitoba's rich Filipino culture with events taking place all over the city, like Ceremonia, an all-Philippine X art exhibit, Lupa Ay Bahay, a Filipino indigenous craft exhibit, and Sala, a Filipino film festival. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
You're listening to Radio Noon. It's 20 minutes after 12 o'clock. I want to let you know about our call-in after the 12:30 news. You know, when you're seeing a cyclist breeze past a stop sign, it can feel frustrating, but in some places it's completely legal and encouraged. It's called the Idaho Stop, and a group of cyclists in Winnipeg want to make it the law here in Manitoba. So we're going to speak to Winnipeg's bike mayor, who will explain what the Idaho Stop is, where it's being used, and whether it's suited to Manitoba's roadways. And we want to hear from you. Call in and weigh in about whether you think this is a good idea. Let us know what your concerns are about cycling to improve it or change it, or tell us your stories. Give us a call after the 12:30 news at 204-780-0893, or you can text us at 204-588-7355. And now it's 21 minutes after 12 o'clock after I've delivered that little bit of info, so do give us a call. Love to hear from you, and Winnipeg's bike mayor is always full of excellent information. Well, the Canada 55-plus Games get underway next week in Quebec City. Athletes from across the country will compete in events like tennis, golf, and pool. And this year, a record number of Yukon women signed up to play 8-ball billiards. The CBC's George Moratis stopped by the pool room to meet some of the sharks for himself.
Holy, that's a good one. Oh, yeah. It's okay. So, who's playing with who?
I don't think we had decided.
I am Evelyn Pasachnik, and I am 77 years old, I think.
Good try.
Oh, we got closer to the corner.
I had to do something easy because I was having a hip replacement and I wasn't allowed to golf and do other things like that. I'm new to the game other than, half a dozen games or whatever in a small community years and years and years ago.
What's it been like learning the game later?
It's kind of fun because, there's a lot of information, but we have to start from scratch and not develop like we're laughing about trying to make special kind of shots and that. We just want to hit the ball into the hole right now.
My name is Luana Katoko. I am in the 75-plus group. Just turned in April, so I didn't squeak under the line, which is okay. I'm the one that had the pool cue in my living room many years ago, like 50 years ago, when my oldest daughter was born. So I've had pool for a while and then left it for 50 years.
What's it been like coming back to it?
Awesome. And I was a late comer into this. I had some health issues and wear a leg brace, and so I've only been shooting since the beginning of the year, likely. So I love playing it then, and I love playing it again now.
It's just fun. It's no big pressure or anything like that. We play for fun, and it's nice to get together with women. Gotten to know them and become friends with them. When I was growing up, my age group, women didn't really play pool. Well, some did if there was a pool table in their house or something. But I can remember the town that I grew up in, it was definitely a male sport. And women were, I wouldn't say they were banned from it, but they were discouraged to hang out there.
Times are changing.
Oh, very much so, yes.
My name is Joan Wilson. I'm 86 years old. I don't have a lot of energy. I just do it. I have to have my afternoon nap, you know, and that keeps me going. For my daughter, it's been a little rough because she keeps saying, Mom, do you want to go anywhere? Oh, no, I have to go play pool. We have two ladies that have started when they were quite young, so they are pretty good. We just don't know how good one has to be in order to win anything in Quebec. But actually, on the whole, we're not really planning on winning. We're going for an awful lot of fun. I've even been learning French, so I can ask for a cup of tea now.
Please, how do you do that?
Je voudrais une tasse de thé. S'il vous plaît. We play together so much. We become friends. We know each other so well. We are a team. And we're going to Quebec and we're going to show it.
Those were some of the members of Yukon's 8-ball billiards team who are off to the Canada 55-plus games. The games begin next week in Quebec City, and thanks to CBC's George Muratis for that story.
She's easy to love and harder to hold. Put your heart on the line. Give her diamonds and gold. She'll still walk away with a smile on her face. She's hiding a truth that she simply won't say. You can sweet talk with her. Words don't mean nothing. She's heard it all. She's easy love, harder to have. Can't tell her nothing, no, nothing.
wasn't that a good tune? Out of Calgary, that was Ashley Ghostkeeper with She's Easy to Love. And apparently, she says she wrote the new song for herself. Now, does that mean about herself or for herself? We don't know, but it was a good song. Now, before we get to news, I want to remind you to give me a call after the 12:30 news, because we are talking about whether should cyclists be allowed to slow roll through stop signs. There's a rally today in favor of allowing that by law. What do you think about that? And what else would you like to see change around cycling in our city? Our in-studio guest is Winnipeg's bike mayor. And give us a call. 204-780-0893, or you can text us at 204-588-7355. It's all about the Idaho Stop, which is called the Idaho Stop, I understand, because it comes from Idaho. Like 40 years ago or something, they've been using it in Idaho, and they're using it in some other states as well. I'm pretty sure it was tried in BC, and I'm not sure it went that well. But we will find out all the ins and outs. 204-780-0893. Call and tell us what you think about cycling, the world of, and the Idaho Stop. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon. I'm Rosanna Hempel. At 12:30, it's 21 in Winnipeg. 30% chance of drizzle or showers today. Risk of thunderstorms later on. A high of 25. A local expert in supply chain management says the federal government is going to have to step in soon to end the railway lockout. CN and CPKC locked out more than 9,000 workers just after midnight Eastern because an agreement couldn't be reached. Barry Prentice is a professor at the I.H. Asper School of Business. In 2019, a CN strike lasted 8 days and took months for rail service to return to normal. Prentice believes Ottawa will have to take action quickly.
7 to 10 days, I think this will have to be resolved. It just is simply too great an impact on the economy to just ignore this and try to hope that the workers and the railways will find a solution. So I think the government is now being forced to act.
Prentice says it's the worst time of year for the grain industry to have a work stoppage. Premier Wab Kinew says he wants to look at intimate partner violence as a public health issue. This comes after a triple murder and suicide in McCreary. The suspect in the case was the subject of a non-contact order by his ex-partner. Premier Kinew says his ministers of families and housing are meeting to find solutions, but he also wants to bring in the health minister and the public officer of health into the conversation.
This seems to be contagious, meaning this is a learned behavior. This is something that spreads through the society. And are there public health experts who can help us with how do we stop that? How do we interrupt that? How do we prevent it?
Kinew says he's also looking into legal ways to address coercive control. And as of October 1st, prescription birth control will be free in Manitoba. Health Minister Uzoma Asagwera says it will cover many commonly used birth control methods, including the pill, IUDs, and implants. Asagwera says birth control can cost hundreds of dollars a year and can add up to as much as $10,000 over a lifetime. They say it makes sense economically as it allows women and gender-diverse people to wait to have children if they want to.
We all know that reproductive health care is health care. Birth control is health care. People deserve to have autonomy over their bodies, autonomy over their health care choices, and to have the choice to make reproductive decisions that make the most sense for them.
Asagwera says the province is in talks with the federal government, which is also looking into free birth control, but they say Manitobans shouldn't have to wait for an agreement. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local news is at 1:30.
Thanks, Rosanna.
You're welcome.
And now joining me in the studio so far is Riley Lachuk, weather specialist. Hi, Riley.
Looking at a bit of a cooler day today, Lori, than we saw the last couple of days, but the heat and humidity return for the weekend. So I'll get into all that in just a moment. Looking at temperatures right now, 20 in Winnipeg, 22 in Brandon. We're looking at temperatures in the low 20s really across southern Manitoba and northwestern Ontario as we head through the lunch hour here. 19s for both Gimli and Victoria Victoria Beach, 17 at the moment in Thompson. We have seen a few showers rolling through. We did see that rain move through the city early this morning. Still some of that rolling through parts of central and northern Manitoba. We also have an air quality advisory still for Thompson, north to Brochet, to Dooley Lake, Lynn Lake, Flin Flon, and the Island Lake region. That's because of the wildfire smoke. Now, it's pretty much all been flushed out of southern Manitoba, but those southerly winds are pushing that smoke from those northern Manitoba wildfires. Instead of pushing it south, those south winds have been driving that to the north. So that's why we're seeing some of the air quality concerns in northern Manitoba now. Satellite and radar, we are seeing still some heavier pockets of rain moving across central Manitoba, the northern Interlake, into northeastern Manitoba as well. Some embedded thunderstorms in some of this as well. So don't be surprised the further north you go that we could see a few more showers or some thunderstorms throughout the afternoon. Here in the south, we clear out through the afternoon. So even by mid-afternoon, we're looking at a sunny sky for places like Brandon through Dauphin. Here in Winnipeg, we don't see the clearing till late afternoon. So by about the supper hour, we should start to see a little bit more sun here in Winnipeg. Certainly by the early morning tomorrow, we're looking at a sunny start to the day. Really province-wide, we're looking at a sunny Friday, sunny skies on the way for Saturday as well, and maybe some thunderstorms as we get through the afternoon, evening Saturday into Sunday, particularly into the northwestern part of Manitoba. I'm talking Swan River, the Pas, Flin Flon, north. The best likelihood on Saturday of some thunderstorms. So your forecast today, 25 for Winnipeg, fairly seasonal for this time of the year. Mostly cloudy through the afternoon. The more clouds and the more chance of some more showers the further east you go, particularly into northwestern Ontario through the day. So we're looking at mainly cloudy skies for places like Pinawa, even Kenora, Dryden, and sunnier conditions for places like Dauphin and Verdun, where we're looking at highs of 26 and 27 this afternoon, 22 in Thompson, 28 is what I have for Winnipeg for your Friday, 30s for the weekend. Risk of thunderstorms later on Sunday for us in the Red River Valley. And then we're back into mix of sun and clouds for Monday and Tuesday, and temperatures pretty seasonal for this time of the year.
I love it how it's staying summer.
Yeah, for now at least.
For now at least. I've known frost in my day.
The longer term trends, which are a little less accurate the further out you go, are showing by the end of the month and into the long weekend in particular that we'll see temperatures dropping back down to the low 20s again.
Gotta happen.
So,
Thanks
yeah, it will.
Thanks a lot, Riley.
You're welcome.
That's Riley Lachek, and you can hear him this afternoon on Up to Speed between 3 and 6. You're listening to CBC Radio Noon. I'm Laurie Hoogstraten, filling in for Janet Stewart. You're at 89.3 FM, 990 AM. Well, on our call-in today, we want to hear from you about cycling, and in particular, the Idaho Stop. Because we're wondering, what do you think about cyclists rolling through stop signs? And maybe even do it yourself, or maybe you grind your teeth through the car window when you see it happen. Well, there's a rally in Winnipeg later this afternoon in support of changing traffic laws to allow cyclists to do a slow roll through stop signs. It's called the Idaho Stop, and it's named after the U.S. state Idaho, that implemented it more than 40 years ago. And the law lets cyclists slow down when they approach an intersection, but they can keep going without stopping if the coast is clear. Winnipeg's bike mayor, Patty Wiens, is here to answer your questions about the Idaho Stop and how it might work or not in the city. But first, here's what bike rally organizer Hillary Rosentreter said about laws requiring cyclists to come to a full stop.
The problem with this safety measure not being legal is that you're essentially criminalizing safety. The main reason why cyclists implement and use the Idaho Stop is to keep themselves safe, to clear the intersection, to avoid potential interactions with cars as much as possible.
And that's cycling advocate Hillary Rosentreter. And to get some background and expertise on the Idaho Stop and all things cycling, we welcome Winnipeg's bike mayor, Patty Wiens, to the studio. Hello.
Hello.
And we want you out there in Radioland to call in with your comments, opinions, close calls, stories around cycling, and how bikes should or should not behave at stop signs. Give us a call, 204-780-0893, or you can text at 204-588-7355. Okay, now, Patty, I explained it a bit in the intro, but can you describe what the Idaho Stop is and how it works?
So it's very important to make the distinction between rolling through a stop sign and what the Idaho Stop actually is, which is treating a stop sign as a yield, right? So when a car is at a yield, it should look both ways before proceeding. And that is what the Idaho Stop is for bikes, right? We have better sight lines when we approach a stop sign. And we're talking mostly about something like a four-way stop, right? Like I never blow through any stop signs at all because my life is precious to me. So when I'm approaching a four-way stop, I have a really good sight line. I look every way. If there is no one stopped, then I proceed. And that is what the Idaho Stop is. And it's important to make that distinction because we don't want people thinking cyclists just want to roll through everything.
And it's not around red lights? Is it more stop signs?
So the Idaho law, the Idaho Stop says that you would treat stop signs as yields and red lights as stop signs.
Okay, so you would stop at a red light.
Absolutely.
And I suppose in the car traffic world, there aren't yield lanes at four-way stops because the traffic isn't as heavy as where there are yield lanes in heavier traffic areas.
Yet, if you watch some of the videos we caught, you would think it's a yield.
Is that right? Well, we have callers on the line, so let's talk to Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia.
Hello?
Hello. What's your opinion about the Idaho Stop?
Yeah, hi. So I cycle to industrial areas all the time. I don't know if you can hear in the background behind me, like I tried to get behind trees and stuff, but there's a huge compressor making all sorts of racket back there. Sometimes you hear planes go over because I'm right beside the airport. But to get here, I have to go through many stop sign controlled intersections. So what I'll do with those, I'll describe it a little bit here. Idaho stops, as I practice them, help me to spend less time at intersections with large automobiles, much larger than me by an order of magnitude or so. But it isn't always appropriate. So I only consider it safe when all three of these little rules that I have for myself are.
Okay.
And that is, no one else is at the stop line.
Yeah.
I have right of way, so that kind of follows on to it. Those are the first two, and then the third is I see no one else trying to speed through. So that includes stuff like people that are 50 yards away trying to just blast through the stop sign, because they're late and they have somewhere to be. That's
Sure.
obviously really important, right?
Oh, well, there's lots of noise in the background. It's kind of hard to hear you, but we did catch the gist of your remarks, and we've got millions of people on the phone, luckily. So thanks, Cynthia, for calling. Oh, I think Cynthia's being blown away by the engine noise there. And we're just going to go straight to another call, and we're going to see what Steve has to say. Hi, Steve.
Hi there.
Hi. What do you think about the Idaho Stop? We just heard from Cynthia that she's in favor of it because of the way she gets around, and she has a few self-imposed rules about it. But this, of course, would change into a bylaw.
Yeah, I'd agree with everything the previous caller said, and for me, it's about this false equivalency between cars and people on bikes, and we're not the same. People on bikes can see unobstructed all around, and we're more aware of our surroundings. And when we're in an intersection, that's when we're at our most vulnerable. So it makes sense from a safety standpoint that we spend as little time in the intersection as possible.
Right.
So if it's clear, why not go ahead? It's not a free pass for cyclists to ignore the law. It's not about that. As Hillary Rosentreter said, it's about legislating safety.
Okay, great. Good point. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So I want to ask you, Patty, Steve seems to be in favor as well, but isn't this something that people are actually doing already?
Because we want to be safe, right? We know that this is our best chance at safety is to look around. There's no one around. I'm not going to slow down because that just puts me in peril. So yeah, people are doing that already. Absolutely.
Well, we have lots of callers on the line, so I think we will just soldier on here. And let me see now. Liz, hi.
Hi.
Have you got a comment for Patty?
I do. I think that rolling through or slowing down for cyclists at stop signs is ludicrous. I take the opposite view. I think it's unsafe. I think these bike advocates have way too much power, and it is a free pass. It's a pass so they don't have to stop. And not only am I a car driver, but I also am a cyclist. And sometimes if I don't see anyone, I glide through. But it's wrong. If they're going to use the streets like those of us who drive cars do, then they need to follow the law. I just think it just sounds dangerous to me, and I think it's crazy.
Thank you, Liz. What do you say to that, Patty?
Sounds like Liz does that once in a while too, so she sees the value of it once in a while.
Yeah, but it's still one of the things that I heard in an earlier discussion is that the idea is to slow down and go through it, 2 or 3K, but people tend to zip through or, sort of give people an inch, they'll take a mile kind of thing. And
kind of like cars Sunday night on Portage Avenue, you mean?
No, but just like trying to get through that intersection at a good clip, and that increases the danger. Do you see that?
I think that for the most part, we need to make laws that protect people, that increase safety. So there's always going to be people who break the law, whether you drive or ride a bike, but we need to keep the safety of the more vulnerable road users as a primary goal here.
Well, let's go back to the lines and get some more comments on this. Hi, Liz. Or Linda, hi.
Hi.
What are your thoughts?
So I can see and I understand that this seems really counterintuitive to people who use the road. However, research has shown that this does decrease collisions at intersections for cyclists, and that's why it's legalized in the U.S. And even the federal transport department is trying to legalize it federally in the U.S. And to look back at this Highway Traffic Act, it so clearly only seems to apply to cars. And cars are in Manitoba, or drivers are considered almost the most important road user. And that is cyclists and pedestrians everywhere. So we're at the start of the mobility revolution. And we believe that the Highway Traffic Act needs to be safe to all road users. So that would mean implementing the Idaho stop and make streets safer for everybody.
Well, thank you very much, Linda, for calling in. Appreciate hearing your point of view.
You're welcome.
We've got lots of people on the line, and I think we'll just continue. We'll go to Brenda. Brenda, what are your thoughts? Hello, Brenda. Oh. No, I guess Brenda's not there. Give us a call. Maybe you're a cyclist. Maybe you're a motorist. Give us a call, 204-780-0893. If you want to text us, you can call 204-588-7355. I'm joined in studio today with Winnipeg's Bike Mayor, Patty Wiens, to hear your comments and answer your questions. Do give me a call. But let's return to the phone lines right now. Ross, what are your thoughts?
Hi, I'm against it. Myself. Before I lost my sight, I cycled all over the city and really enjoyed it. But I obeyed the laws. I thought a bicycle was the same as a motor car and had to follow the same laws. And now I see that many cyclists don't obey any laws. They have a law upon themselves. And I'm not sure if it's taught in schools as much as it used to be, but now that I'm vision impaired, I depend on everything to stop at a stop sign so I can cross safely. And if cyclists are coming up there and they're not planning on stopping, it puts me in danger. it's hard enough being vision impaired and getting across streets as it is.
Yeah.
But to have this where everybody's just gliding through stops, and I realize they're supposed to look, but most times they don't.
Right.
They think they have the right of way many times, and there's some that do follow the rules, but many don't.
Yeah. Good points there, Mark. I'll ask Patty to respond. Thank you.
Absolutely. Pedestrians are, vulnerable road users as well, right? And at some point, everybody is a pedestrian. You got to get off your car and walk too, even if you only drive and you don't ride a bike.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand Ross's concern. And I think that a law requires education as well. And cyclists should be educated that, when you see someone standing there, I'm guessing Ross will stop before he crosses too, because he is expecting that, he can cross.
Mm-hmm.
As cyclists are coming too and they see Ross standing there or any pedestrian, I know I stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it will continue to be the same, right? We're always going to expect people not to follow the law. Again, that's not just cyclists, that's everybody. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need better education, and we need better education in all manners of road behavior, not just cyclists, drivers as well. Everybody needs kind of a refresher in this day and age where cars are huge.
Yeah.
Tinted windows are so prevalent. When I am at an intersection, I'm always looking to see if a driver can see me. And I can't even see their face, even in the front sometimes. And that is terrifying. So we need a refresh on all road safety education.
And maybe mandatory bike bells. I just like the sound of them. Ding, ding.
I
And
love my
it's a
bike
good
bell.
thing to
I
have.
know it's another point of contention, even within some of the cycling community. I am a big advocate for bells, absolutely.
Right. I'm just going to return to the phone lines. I have a lot of questions I want to ask you about the
but
Idaho stop.
everybody's
But it's
calling.
wonderful to have people calling, sure. Corey, you're on the line. What do you have to add to this conversation? Oh, maybe Corey's not on the line ready to add to our conversation. Let's try yet another line. Brenda, are you there? No, Brenda's not there either. Well, then I'm going to ask the question that I wanted, which was this Idaho stop. How has it turned out for other regions? I mean, it's been in use in Idaho for 40 years, but it's been tried in other places with varying degrees of success, I think, or what's the word?
From what I saw today, Ann Carlson from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, the acting administrator right now, is saying that it has been promoting safety and encouraging more people to bike and reducing cyclists' overall risks. And it has decreased vehicle and bicycle crashes in the United States. And our neighbors to the south just adopted that law. Minnesota has just made it law. To implement the Idaho stop. And I know sometimes we want to be just like our neighbors, and let's hope that's one of the way we want to imitate.
Now, was it not implemented in BC?
I don't think so. But BC has a law where you have to, depending on the speed at which you're passing a cyclist, you have to give them a certain amount of space.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's return to the phone lines. We'll go to Corey. Are you on line 5 there? Hello? No, Corey's still not there. I think we're having...
Hi.
Oh, there he is. Hi, Corey.
Sorry about that. Cellular issues.
Oh, I thought you went out for a coffee or something. So
No, I wish. I'm a cyclist and a driver.
Okay.
And I just wanted to comment that, I think the Idaho stop, if it became a thing, it wouldn't be all that different from what we already see on Grosvenor and some of these other streets that have calming circles, with the four-way yields.
Mm-hmm.
I think that cyclists can handle a yield. As mentioned by other callers, the sight lines are, better. And then just, spending less time in the intersection makes us all safer. And as a driver, personally, I don't want to be held up by a cyclist making a full stop and, having to, just wait there for the 3 or 4 seconds as dictated by the Highway Traffic Act. I just want to get on with my day. So I think it's a win-win for everybody and safer. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, Corey. So tell me, how does Winnipeg's infrastructure compare to other places where the Idaho stop is being used? Because often we hear about we don't have as many designated bike lanes, but lots of four-way stops. So how would it work here?
I'm not sure about what the infrastructure is where in places where the Idaho stop is implemented. I have to be honest with you, but I do know that our infrastructure is behind a lot of other places. I mean, North America in general is behind a lot of other places. We're currently even behind Edmonton, which is kind of interesting because Edmonton has decided to spend over $100 million in finishing their bike infrastructure on top of their road renewal commitment as well. So we're definitely behind.
Oh, but room for improvement always, right?
Absolutely.
Well, actually, when we were talking about this before the show, we got a couple of calls. Let's hear from somebody who called in earlier.
Hello, my name's Andrew Single. I wanted to comment on the Idaho stop thing that's going on. Just acknowledging that drivers are also not really stopping at stop signs, nor do cyclists. Cyclists will typically yield because it's a safer thing to do. The problem with the drivers, though, is that's actually not safer to do. The point of a stop is to be able to stop the forward motion so the driver has time to safely check for pedestrians, and that's not something they're really doing. They're slowing and checking for other cars. So if we can handle the stop signs on our roads the way they are right now, where neither drivers and cyclists are stopping, but the drivers are posing a danger to people, I think we can handle this legally being offered as an option for cyclists. Thank you.
Well, what do you think about that?
Yeah, he's dead on. The other day I had an experience where I came to a four-way stop and was going to use it as a yield, but there was a car stop there, right? And the whole time he was looking at his cell phone and just kept rolling through, So I'm thinking, I'm thinking that he's seeing me and he's not, right? So implementing law is important everywhere.
It is. Let's go back to the phone lines. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Janet. I totally disagree with the Idaho stop. I'm a delivery driver in South Winnipeg, and let me tell you, half of the cyclists do not follow the laws as they should be. They build bike lanes for them. Half of them don't even use them. I'll give you an example of how dangerous this actually is. Chevrier, which is a major truck route with all the businesses that are in there, they put bike lanes in there, and semis pass one another, basically almost touching their mirrors because they have shrunk that road so bad. And so they're turning into businesses like myself, who was a delivery driver, and I'm being cut off by a bicycle on my right-hand side that I cannot see when they're supposed to be stopped. Another example is on Parker Avenue going west when you turn onto Georgina. They have access for bike lanes in there, which with no stops. You have buses who are turning who have to stop, but the cyclists don't. And half of the time, I drive through there 4 or 5 times a day, and there's almost an accident 25% of the time. Cyclists need to stop. It's as simple as that. That cars are getting bigger. If cyclists want to share the roads with us, then they need to pay the same price that we pay to be on the roads. And that's all I got to say.
Well, thank you very much for calling in. We really appreciate your remarks. And we're getting to the end of the show, so I'm just going to forge ahead on the phone lines here. Brenda, hello.
Hi.
What have you got to say about this subject?
I agree absolutely with the last caller. I got a ticket for rolling through a stop sign, and rightly so. I deserved it. And
in your car or on your bike?
In my car.
Okay.
The cop said it was really dangerous, and I make sure I will never do that again. Bicyclists should be stopping at stop signs like a car, go when it's their turn, and also like a yield is a yield, a stop is a stop, a red light is a red light. And I see bicyclists going through red lights all the time. They will come up on my right and they will zip right through. That is highly dangerous. And, I know car drivers are not patient with bicyclists. I try to be. I try very hard to be. But when I see something like that, I think, stupid, like dangerous. Yeah.
Well, Brenda, we're going to let you have the last word there because we're at the very end of the show. But thank you very much for your thoughts. And thank you very much, Bike Mayor Patty Weens. It was very nice to have you in the studio again today. So interesting to hear all the different points of view.
Sure. Thank you for having me. But I do want to, one quick last word.
Sure.
We do pay the price. Like Mark said, we do. We pay in our property taxes and we deserve to be safe.
Well, thank you very much for being with us today. And thank you to all the callers and to all the listeners at Radio Noon. It's been very nice being with you. Thanks to Marshall Hodgins, our tech, our director, Wendy Parker, and Travis Pedersen, our YouTube person. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow. It's been fun. Let's do it again, as they say. Bye.